Okay, so Todd, uh, let's just talk about the timeline and when you guys found out about what happened through that text feed. What was just your reaction and your client's reaction to this?
Well, it's troubling. Obviously, my client is a very private person, and obviously she was concerned with um, positioning herself and her family to address these issues. I mean, racial issues are always troubling. She wants to make it clear that her issues are not directed at the fine teachers at the Gateway School District. She believes that they're doing an amazing job. Her issues primarily are the hiring practices as it relates to the board.
Mhm. As far as why or why not she wasn't hired, what do you think the motive was? Because we talked to Rick, and he made it clear to me, at least in his point of view, is this wasn't a racially motivated decision, but there obviously was a big red flag that seemed to be part of the process. When you read those texts, you see it out there.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand your question.
I mean, do you think the board solely decided not to hire her because she's married to a black man?
It seems that way. Based upon what I read in the text messages, I'm sure there's a lot of other information that we're not privy to at this point. But it certainly seems that way. Any reference to somebody's spouse as it relates to color is troubling. But I'm not going to go so far as to make a definite statement, only because there's a pending complaint in this matter, and we need to obviously do our due diligence to discern what the facts are.
Mm-hmm. And you told me that Rick brought this to your attention. How did that all play out? You even said, thankfully he did that and put this out there. It needs to be out there.
Yeah, this whole thing happened, from my understanding, in February of 2020. So, my client didn't find out until December. That's 10 months. So 10 months went by, and no one from the board, aside from Mr. McIntyre, brought this to my client's attention. And I think that is an issue that has to be addressed. To what extent are our leaders, the people that we put into government, qualified to address issues similar to this?
And there is an African American member of the board. A little surprising to you that maybe she didn't say? I mean, she was part of that text feed as well, asking Paul to explain himself.
Yeah, I believe that all of the board members have a responsibility. And I don't necessarily believe that this necessarily should have been Mr. McIntyre alone. 10 months went by. The superintendent was a part of that text message chain, and all of the board members. And I'm sure that, there was conversations about what has said, and to what extent did the board address those issues, and to what extent, was this something that, they attempted to look past? I mean, these are questions that we're going to have to get into later, as we get into the facts of the case. But, all of it is troubling.
Yeah. Does it scare you a little bit to think that if they let this kind of thing pass, other instances of what appears to be racism here have been swept under the rug? Does that make you feel like that might be the case?
I tell you what it did is it brought a tear to my eye. My relationship with Monroeville at this point has been very positive. And I've met great people. I thought that, this was something that we had moved beyond. But to learn that, these kind of issues are predicated, at the top level of our governmental tier is very troubling. I guess somebody could say that perhaps one person was a bad apple, and maybe, it's not really a big problem. But the problem is that there were 9 people that were a part of that, and no one said anything. So to me, it's bigger than just one person.
Yeah, and you won't take the, I guess, excuse as the guy was just being an idiot. We just forgot about it.
No.
We wanted to ignore it.
No, character is defined by what you do when no one's watching. right? So to the extent that he believed or they believed that no one was watching and, they allowed this to continue, that's a problem. So I won't put it on one person. I'll simply say that this is something that needs to be addressed throughout the entire board. And I don't believe that money is going to solve that. I mean, certainly, money is a component of the lawsuit, but I don't necessarily believe that money is going to solve that problem. I mean, these are some very tough questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves, and we're going to have to be accepting of the real responses that come with those questions. And then action has to take place. It's not enough to simply say that I'm sorry, right? Because sorry doesn't address the problems that have been continuing long before I got to Monroeville. So we'll see, but I hope that during this conversation that it impacts change.
That's the end game.
Because that's the goal.
Right, absolutely. Just let's break apart that text feed real quick. Do you believe, Rick clearly didn't, when I spoke to him yesterday, did not believe that this guy knew a family with the name of Darky. What did you think when you saw that text feed? Just the comments he made.
I was appalled, as anyone should be, whether you're black or white. That has no place, in our society.
How's your client doing right now?
She's doing the best she can to deal with the anxiety that comes with something like this. I mean, she obviously knew that it was going to spark attention, but at the end of the day, she probably feels some remorse that her family and her husband was brought into this, and but at the same time, she's a victim. She's a victim of factors that she has nothing to do with. You can't penalize somebody for who they love.
It seems like that's the message. I mean, that's what's happening here, or at least.
Yeah, it seems reasonable to presume that.
Doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. It does. It does.
Okay, is her husband at all being vocal about any of this as well? Is he just providing support for her right now and staying, not vocal?
Well, I don't want to get into the dynamics of the family entity, but I will simply say they moved together, and they're a beautiful family. I've had an opportunity to speak with them on multiple occasions, and they support one another. They're great, members of our community, and they shouldn't be subjected, to this kind of discriminatory remarks.
Would I don't know if you know this, but just asking, would she consider taking a position at Gateway if there was one offered to her in the down the road?
Well, I mean, I certainly won't speak for her,
right.
But I mean, I would imagine that she would consider it, as she would any other position. I mean, this would have been a dream job for her, right? This would have been a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. She was very qualified. She would have had an opportunity to do good work for the students in our district. So I think she would have accepted the fact that she didn't get the job, if there were no other issues, concerning race. We all try and we don't always win, but we'll accept the fact that we didn't win if the playing field is fair.
It's legitimate. Yeah,
correct.
Right, sure.
But to the extent that it's not, it's insulting. And I think that ultimately they took a position, they took a stand, and they said, we're not willing to accept this. And I applaud her for that, because many people could have just simply said, I don't want to deal with what's coming, if I make this public.
Right.
But the fact that she took a stance and she's fighting for her family, I applaud her for that. And my office is going to extend every resource that we can. We're going to dot every I. We're going to cross every T to hold Gateway School District responsible.
Yeah, it transcends more. It's more than just her specific position. It's exposing something that might be a real big underlying issue.
I agree. I agree. Because, as I said, to the extent that 9 school board members were aware of this information 10 days ago, and only one came forward, is a problem.
Yeah. And it's been a year since 10 days.